Jarvis, drop my needle.
Hello, this is the hardcore legend Mick Foley, and if you are interested in listening to idiots, you came to the right place. Have a nice day.
Woo! That's an attention getter.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot.
What we're dealing with here is a complete lack of respect for the law.
Oh my God, he's an idiot.
You know, of course, that you're out of your jurisdiction.
Personally, I think you're an idiot.
But that's the evidence in the car.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Always like to keep my audience riveted.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, friends and fiends, and welcome to Free Range Idiocy, the podcast about everything, but mostly just the stuff we like. In case you didn't notice, Star Wars has a new show out on the Disney Plus, and a whole lot of people watched the first 2 episodes. Oddly enough, a lot of those same people are awaiting their Amazon deliveries of pitchforks and pre-soaked torches, but that's pretty much standard for fans these days, isn't it? Well, never let it be said that we were level-headed enough to reserve judgment for when all the facts were in, so we're going to dive in and give you our thoughts in this episode 166, Premature Adjudication, The Acolyte. I was waiting to see what your reaction was. Oh my. I am your Uncle Todd, and with me, as always, is the man who has several custom lightsabers in his possession, including one suitable for cutting a 76-ounce tomahawk ribeye. He has been my partner in Idiocy for over 2 decades and has a cholesterol level orbiting somewhere out near the outer rim. I give you the man they call Tim.
Greetings and salutations, my friend. I'm still recovering from the premature adjudication title that you have given us here. That was I was not sure where you were going with that, and then you started talking about lightsabers. I'm like, good luck. Holy moly!
Well, I just wanted to keep you. I want to keep you on your toes, sir.
I am awake and paying attention now. How are you, my friend?
Oh my!
Yes, thank you, Sulu. Oh God, impulse engine, sir. Jeez, Louise. Holy moly!
Thrustulu. No, never mind. Anyways,
oh boy,
I'm doing well.
Uncle Todd's coming in hot tonight. Look out.
It's been a hell of a month this week. Doing all right, sir. Doing all right. And yourself?
Cannot complain. I survived my. I had a little bit of a run-in with the cicadas this weekend. I was on my bike ride.
That's right.
And in what can only be described as a scene akin to the asteroid scene from Empire Strikes Back, there I was on my bike, the Millennium Falcon, bobbing and weaving, trying to avoid, getting hit by these objects crisscrossing across the trail I was riding on. And oh my gosh, I was breathing strictly through my nose. I couldn't open my mouth because I was afraid one was going to fly in. I was clenched on the bike, waiting for the inevitable, just hitting these things. It was an interesting bike ride, my friend. But I survived 20 miles on Saturday morning, and just before the rain started rolling in. Yes, believe it or not, Uncle Todd, we had rain on Saturday in Chicago.
Really?
Not that you would be
I thought that was just a regular thing.
Familiar with that or anything. I think we're just about dried out from 2 weeks ago, but both in terms of liver and skin, but nonetheless.
Oh my gosh, we had so little bourbon as to what I was expecting. I'm actually a little disappointed, quite honestly.
Well, you have to come out again. We'll have to do it
yes,
up.
Indeed. And I appreciate the fact that you once again talked about clenching. Afraid that one of the cicadas was going to sneak up the old tailpipe on you.
Not so much that. It was more just the inevitable encounter with them. And
I broke 37 miles per hour on the bike today. How'd you do that? Well, let's just say I was highly motivated. And by the way, grab the needle nose pliers. I need a favor.
Good Lord. Oh my God.
Not the barbecue tongs.
But we have heard that when they fly around as they are, it is the beginning of the end. We will soon be free of this infestation that has taken over the greater Chicagoland area for the last...
And the plague of blood comes next, apparently.
Yes. And then the second horseman rides.
I can never keep those straight. Oh my gosh.
It was a weekend to say the least.
Yes, indeed. And I won't comment on mine either, except on Friday.
Oh,
steak
yes,
and
sir.
bourbon for me.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you have? You had you did not have a steak. You had bourbon, but what was it? Pork chop or something you had?
I had pork tacos. And
Yes.
a side of Brussels sprouts.
So I win. Is basically
balsamic vinaigrette and with bacon sprinkled throughout. It was wonderful.
So basically, you ate vegetarian.
No, I had pork and I had bacon.
That doesn't count.
Really? You didn't seem to
Not
think that when
compared to
you're eating the pork the other day at Green Street Bates.
Not compared to the sheer joy of a fillet with melted black truffle garlic butter on it.
Oh, very nice.
So much butter, like so much butter. My wife was looking at me like, you can't eat all that butter. I'm like, oh, you watch me.
She's like, I left the paddles at the house. I don't know if something goes wrong here. I don't know what you want me to do.
I might lick this plate. I might just drain it into the bourbon. I'm not sure. I mean, everything is on the table here.
Good Lord.
Anyways, we are going to dive into the first 2 episodes of Star Wars: The Acolyte. We are recording this actually on Tuesday, June 11th, so there is a new episode that we could be rolling into this, but of course both of us barely made it over the line in terms of watching the first 2 episodes to record this sucker. So don't ask too much of us. We're just rolling with the first 2, and woo boy, does the internet have thoughts, and I guess we'll share as well. But first of all, we need to get into
and we should just put a disclaimer just up front now. We'll say it one more time, but we are going to talk spoilers. So, folks, if you haven't seen it and you don't want to know what's going on, because there's a pretty big spoiler that happens right out of the gate, which we got to talk about. We need to adjudicate prematurely, but nonetheless, sorry, you were about to introduce our first
geek.
There we go.
It's right here, right? It's looking at me.
Ooh, we have a new intro. Ah! Very nice.
Feels so funky.
Hey, we still got the funky, baby. Still got the funky.
I love that clip. It's looking right at me, Ray.
So last week, my wife, I walk upstairs and she's watching that movie. I had some work I was doing late, and I go up and I'm starting to watch it with her and stuff. And I realized I could recite almost this entire movie with just a couple of quotes of whatever scene it was. I could take it from there. It was just so funny. I'm just like,
a lot of people have 4 mortgages.
Oh my gosh.
You are a poor scientist.
Yes, indeed.
Anyways, what do we got on deck here for the week in Geek, sir?
Well, figure it apropos. One of the stars, and we will talk about the definition of that in a moment. Carrie Ann Moss of recently of The Acolyte found this interesting article from our good friends. Maybe I shouldn't say good friends. A news source, if you will, mensjournal.com. Yeah, I know. Not Screen Rant, not Collider, not Sci-Fi Geeks, not any of the normal usual suspects we round up. No, Men's Journal.
This was right below an article called "How to Make Your Prostate Your Best Friend."
Well, or how to extract a cicada from certain areas of your body. But nonetheless,
hey, I mean, 2 birds with 1 stone, right?
There you go. But interesting article about explaining where she explains why she and her husband of 25 years took their teenage kids and moved away from Hollywood. I included it here just because I thought this was kind of interesting. She talks about the reason she fled Hollywood for a quieter life in New Hampshire. Apparently, Trinity has nestled into the great Granite State.
Or as I like to call it, the right side up Vermont.
Indeed. But yeah, basically, she, in this article, talks about, obviously moved to LA in the 90s when she was working in television, and she set roots down when she was cast in The Matrix. That kind of changed everything, obviously, for her. But in 2020, she and her husband decided to move their teenage children out and wanted to go somewhere where they could have a quieter life, more nature, less traffic, and they settled on New Hampshire. Now, of course, it doesn't say where in New Hampshire, but I just found it very, very interesting that that's where they ended up. And the other part of this too is she really talks a lot about doing it for the kid. They wanted to do something like this for the kids as well, giving them more of a normal kind of environment to kind of grow up in, as opposed to what I can only imagine is the hustle and bustle of LA and Hollywood and all of that. So So it's a short article, but it was just an interesting insight into their decision to do that. Get a little insight into her husband, and him being more of a nature guy. Her, she seems very happy as far as family goes and stuff like that. And good, good on them for trying to keep that strong and trucking along. So that's really that article. But sir, any thoughts on Trinity? You may bump into she could roll into one of your band's performances in Portland.
She could, more than likely not, but she could. Okay. The possibility is there. It's one of those deals where it's nice if you can do it. It's like it goes back to it. It really depends on what you've done previously. Like if you want to break into Hollywood, you gotta live out there, because you've got to take meetings. You got to grasp for every single contact, opportunity, everything. If you have a certain amount of clout, you can afford to, in monetary and in terms of your status, you can afford to do that. Katie Sackhoff just, I think not too long after she finished like rebuilding her house in LA, moved up to the Pacific Northwest. I think primarily for family reasons and things like that. But, she can kind of afford to do that, even though I think in one of her podcasts, she was saying she really hasn't worked that much since COVID, besides like Mando, because of just the strike and all that stuff that's happened. But I mean, you're going to get calls. Mm-hmm. And as long as you're somewhere vaguely near an airport, there's a lot of options out there. Like you can make things work, especially if people are calling you and you're not calling them. So it's less of an issue. I kind of equate it with like, hey, it was really nice when Radiohead released their album, it's like 20 years ago, when they did that first album where they were like, hey, pay whatever you want. That's great. And they got to keep all the money, and it was like, oh, this is a new model. I'm like, this only works when you have a couple million fans already. Right. Like you can't do this as just a normal band. Like, when you have like a couple thousand fans, it ain't going to work well for you. Yeah. You have to have a certain stature. And if she can pull it off, then go right ahead. That's great for her, man. That's, glad that she could do that for her kids.
The question is she southeastern New Hampshire? Is she southern New Hampshire? Is she central New Hampshire? There's a lot of places, a lot of good places you could move to. With it kind of depends on the school system too, especially if you're talking about kids. But could she be up in Wolfboro?
Maybe. I mean, there is a lot of options, really.
A lot of options. I mean, anywhere around Lake Winnipesaukee, that's a beautiful area up there. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, but and of course, it's not like you have to be like right near Manchester or Boston to catch a flight. So there's plenty of different ways that you could go. But now it makes me wonder. I'll be on the lookout for Miss Moss. Moss.
Uncle Todd, your assignment now is to, much in the same way that you got Mick Foley to give us a little quote on the Free Range Idiocy podcast, and the wonder that it is that you bump into Gary Ann Moss and get a quote from her supporting the Range of Idiots.
I'm not turning into your stalker, dude. I'm not doing that. I'm sorry.
Damn it. All right, moving right along.
And the thing was, like, I got that sound clip from Mick Foley at one of his meet and greets at a Chinese restaurant in Saugus, Mass. Like, it wasn't like I tracked him down.
But you worked for it, sir.
I did, actually, because I was dumb enough to walk off the first time without, like, getting my stuff signed. So they actually let me back up, and there was only, like, 2 other people there. So I had a little bit more time. So Idiocy worked in my favor that time.
It was kismet.
It was. Call it karma. Call it kismet. It all goes back.
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Actually, when I was watching Ghostbusters with my wife, there was one point she asked me a question, and I answered her in the Janine Melnitz, "What do you want, Ghostbusters? What do you want?"
Yeah.
Can I help you? All right. Next article. Is it time? Is it time? Is it Ghost Rider time? Time. There it is.
Where did those two connect for you? I'm just curious. Like Ghost Rider and Vader.
I don't know.
Where did the synapses like just?
Well, from our friends at ScreenRant.com, the title of the article, if you can care to open it, was "The Time is Finally Right for the MCU to Bring Norman Reedus' dream Marvel role to life." And so
there's a lot of times when people say it's time without then automatically thinking about, the what would they call him? The super heavyweight. I know that was one of them, but the Mastodon?
Yes.
Which was, I think Jim Cornette does not take too kindly to that. He has thoughts about that.
I bet he does.
That was a Vince McMahonism. Anyways.
But no, this article is about, is the time right to have actor Norman Reedus, famous from The Walking Dead, step into the MCU as Ghost Rider. The thought here being, now that basically the MCU has completely spiraled off from any sort of grounded storytelling into the fantastical and
Whoa. I love how you talk about grounded in, like, the first Marvel movie had to do with a dude in a flying suit.
Yes.
Do you have one of those?
No, but
okay,
one of the charms of the movie was it was very much grounded in a character who people could relate to, and it was a
but then the second one was a dude who turned green.
Gearheads, and it was very just very into the tech.
Okay, fine. But as soon as you hit Incredible Hulk, can we agree that at that point we have left the building of, like, groundedness?
No, it could happen.
Carry on.
I'm kidding.
No, you got this. Go ahead.
I'm kidding. Uh-oh. Uncle Todd's upset. Look, he's checking his shoulders. It's like, what do you think? I sent some ninjas after you?
I don't know.
Well, I'm just saying, after we did the MCU top 12 or 10 or whatever we did, we talked about...
That was like 2 episodes ago. Is it already time for you to go to the home?
Maybe.
My goodness. We got to wrap this up before Murder, She Wrote comes on. Tim's going to be looking for his rice pudding.
I do need to watch my stories.
Matlock. Anyways.
Matlock. All right.
Gills.
But no, I mean, it's let's be honest. Phase 1, outside of, Thor and Guardians of the Galaxy, started off for the most part focused on Earth and happenings in Earth. And we got into Norse gods and, a little bit of a gamma
super soldier and
super soldier and stuff. It was amped up slightly from a real grounded nature. But now we're in a phase where, we're into the multiverse and all sorts of ballyhoo and tomfoolery. So why not bring in Ghost Rider to come in and save the day? With Norman Reedus from The Walking Dead playing it, I think he would be wonderful after the more over-the-top, telling of that by, what's-his-face, Nicolas Cage, who I believe played Ghost Rider.
Yes, because this is going to be a much more grounded version of a story of a dude with a skull that's on fire riding a motorcycle.
It could be.
It could be.
Norman, why are you being like this, my friend?
Because I don't know.
You're just being difficult, aren't you?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's from our friends at ScreenRant.com, and we know you have a vendetta with them, so,
Well, no, which one was it? Was it Vulture? Screen Rant? One of them. I actually had to install an ad blocker for the first time because I just could not take how, like, cancerous the ads were. It was ridiculous. I'm like, I can't even read this because it keeps shifting the page for reloading the ads.
Don't you love it when it does that? It's like,
oh yeah, that's my favorite thing in the world. Yeah, makes me want to punch a puppy.
Oh boy.
To be clear, I don't punch puppies, but it makes me think about it, which just goes to show how bad it is because I love me some puppies, love me some kittens. Anyways,
Uncle Todd, the pumpy puncher.
I'm a little upset that Nick Cage isn't getting another shot at this.
Why?
Because, I mean, well, then again, we are going to get... Apparently, there is going to be a Spider-Man noir movie with Nick Cage.
There is.
So I'm okay. We're going to get Nick Cage kind of MCU adjacent, so I'm fine with that.
Yep.
But, I mean, just don't give a rip at this point in his career, Nick Cage playing Ghost Rider with, like, actual, like, people who know how to make a comic book movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in. Are you kidding me? Take my money now.
Well, Norman Reedus, much like Robert Downey Jr., I think it's one of these roles that would fit very nicely into the character. So during The Walking Dead's heyday, both he and forgetting the actor's name, he played Negan. I can't think of his name, but the actor who played Negan, and then actually the actor who played Rick. Was kind of a guest star on the show, but Reedus and the actor who plays Negan were doing it was like 8 to 10 episodes on AMC, doing motorcycle rides around Europe, around America. They're both really into just motorcycle riding, and so and then Reedus as an actor is just he's just a very understated kind of not quiet, but just he has kind of this quiet nature to him, even though he plays fairly violent characters. And so the article here is just making the case that maybe this is the right time to bring someone like him into a role like this, where it is, a bit fantastical, but it would kind of fit his character and fit kind of the art type of characters that he typically plays.
Sure.
This is also, he's also kind of, he's got some stiff competition because there's apparently some Hollywood A-listers like Ryan Gosling and Keanu Reeves who are also interested in playing Ghost Rider in the MCU. Don't know how that would work with either of them, but being a fan of The Walking Dead and having seen the range of work that Reedus has done, I think I actually am quite in agreement with this article and thinking that he would be a great fit for this and be different as a strong, silent type as opposed to kind of the wacky Nick Cage. So,
Well, I love me some wacky Nick Cage. I can't wait for the Punisher to show up. That's what I'm waiting for.
Nick Cage should play Mephisto. I think that's what we should have.
He might have already.
Well, he could have appeared. I don't know. So basically that's the extent of that article. And it's talking a little bit about, with Ghost Rider being kind of on the sidelines for so long. Again, it's one of those things that I feel like Phase 1, tried to, as much as there is a fantastical nature to Phase 1, tried to keep things very, tried to keep the stories very grounded and very kind of relatable. And so I'm just, it'll be interesting if they were to do this, how they would do this. They also bring up the fact that, with Blade potentially coming into the MCU, as we saw at the end of the Eternals, that would be kind of an interesting thing to bring him in. So we shall see. But Ghost Rider possibly making a debut in the MCU in the near future. We shall see.
Right on.
Last article. Will we see the Scarlet Witch again? And to quote the great LA Knight, and according to ScreenRant.com, no, that ain't happening. So apparently it has been confirmed. We actually got to get a soundbite of him doing the na because there is no one who does it better than he.
I just managed to update these today, dude. You got to give me a few more years before I can get that one in there.
But it looks like it has been somewhat confirmed. I'm trying to find out where. I don't want to say it's Catherine Hahn who said this, but I believe. Let's see. Everything we know about Agatha all along suggests the show will center on the ramification of the end of WandaVision, including Agatha's imprisonment. There's something in here that I mentioned. I didn't read ahead. Shows Agatha as a detective struggling. Oh, before her is a document that lists deaths. Oh, so as part of, let's see. So at an event for TV advertisers, the upfronts, they screened the first Agatha All Along trailer, and as part of it, she's playing a detective struggling with the details of a murder case. Before is a document that lists deaths, including one for W. Maximoff, who is listed to have died on October 13th. Trailer continues with a conversation between Agatha and the other witches about the future of her coven. So it seemed to kind of confirm that Wanda did in fact die in Doctor Strange 2. And so let's see. In the Multiverse of Madness, Marvel has confirmed Wanda's death in the MCU in several ways. Because one of the big things is the way she died in the Multiverse of Madness. It's one of those things when you don't see it actually, see them physically die and are held by someone that did the death really happen, and that's always been kind of the thing is, will we see her come back? There was some I think there was in a past week in Geek, back around the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness time frame, there were some articles that came out saying, well, she could come back as part of the Avengers Secret Wars, or she could come back as part of, Kang, what was the Avengers movie with Kang?
Kang Dynasty.
Thank you, Kang Dynasty. That she could come back as, like in some kind of a redemption story or something like that.
Yeah.
But this here kind of puts the nail in the coffin that her character has died. And I don't know how I feel about that because, I was watching a couple clips of Endgame on YouTube a couple nights ago. And, there was a couple scenes with like her and Hawkeye, kind of toward the end after Tony's death and everything. And I don't know, something doesn't sit well. Like I didn't mind WandaVision. I liked it. I thought it told a good story. But there is something strange to how they treated her in Endgame, and then the leap you made into WandaVision where I get it. She was suffering, she was grieving, she was suffering from grief. Totally understand that, but it's still like you see the Wanda at the end of Endgame where she's kind of, Hawkeye says to her, he's like, I wish there was some way I could tell them that we won, them being the ones who had died. And she makes a comment like they know, like she was very much at peace, it seemed like. And then it just like everything went off the rails all of a sudden with her. So it was kind of, it's always been kind of a weird thing I've noticed between that movie and then what followed.
Yeah. I mean, grief isn't a straight line linear thing anyways. So, I mean, you can always fall back on that, but
yeah.
It does make it a little bit hinky there. Like, I don't know how they're going to justify that. I think it just mostly comes down to like Elizabeth Olsen does not want to do any more movies, and fair enough. Like I get it. Like after a certain amount of time, you're just like, I am pretty much done making these movies. I kind of want to go on.
Has she been quoted as saying that? This doesn't reference anything that she said, but I didn't.
I seem to remember at one point, and not like she was like F these guys. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
It was more like, I wouldn't mind doing other things. And I mean, just being under contract and being part of a big machine like this does make it difficult to do other things and to kind of have that. But I think it's just human nature too. Like you want like the big paydays, you want to be in the big movies, and then after a while, it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I don't want to keep being, this kind of an actor. Now I want to do small stuff because I've got money and I've got prestige and I've got this and I got that. So now I don't want to do that anymore. So
yeah, interesting.
It makes sense, but hey, it was a good run.
Yeah, it does make mention. I'm opening this article up real quick. It was from 2023, so it was from last year. After 4 years of Marvel, Elizabeth Olsen needs other characters than just Scarlet Witch. So kind of to what you were just saying, like there's a desire on her side to do something else, and understandably.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, her character did actually get a pretty wide range.
Oh yeah, yeah.
As opposed to like being Captain America. Well, you got to play. Chris Evans got to play around a little bit in that, but still, you're Captain America. And that character did not. One of the things that was endearing about him is that fundamentally that character did not really change.
Yeah.
He changed in little ways, but fundamentally he was just the good man who did the right thing. So I mean, you kind of get, after a while, you're like, okay, I'm kind of tired of making this same movie, it feels like.
Yep. Agreed. All right. Well, that, my friends, is a neat and tidy week in Geek.
Still around a half hour, but neat and tidy, sure.
Well, we spent about 10 minutes with you kibitzing about my fantastical comment about MCU.
Damn!
Uncle Todd rotating some new sounds into the soundboard. I love it.
All right, so let's get into our premature adjudication of Star Wars: The Acolyte.
Sorry, I had to laugh at that.
That's all right. So we got episode 1, which is Lost/Found. Episode 2, Revenge/Justice. Apparently, this is going to be a thing now where we're talking about the duality. Again, sports. Spoilers ahead. Did not get a lot of sleep.
Entertainment.
You made wrestling a dirty word. You made sports entertainment. Oh
the sport of professional wrestling. Thank you, Paul Heyman.
Oh my gosh.
I
am a Paul Heyman guy.
Gotta love the conviction with which he speaks.
Yeah. So I mean, it was very interesting because we got a little bit of a pseudo intro to this. Like, it wasn't a full on crawl.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. It was more of like, hey, and here's
very much a
departure.
Yeah, from what we're used to. May I read a quick premise?
Yes, please.
Real quick from the Wikipedias. The Acolyte is set at the end of the Star Wars franchise's High Republic era, approximately 100 years before Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. It sees a respected Jedi Master investigating a series of crimes that bring him into contact with a former Padawan learner and reveals sinister forces. So it's almost like Jedi Master Noir here.
In a way, although it didn't really kind of live up to that.
Not yet, at least.
Not yet. Yeah.
Not yet, at least, but yeah.
So yeah, it was a very different feel to start off with.
Yes, it was.
I don't know. Like, to me, I was just like instantly. The thing that is funny to me is how some of the comments that I read in my brief research for this were very much like, you can't tell where it is in the timeline. And blah, 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 blah. They were just pissing and moaning, as Star Wars fans and fans in general do, but specifically Star Wars fans. And I was like, okay, but you know what? It immediately felt like Star Wars to me.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is an important thing, that was one of the biggest knocks I have on the prequel trilogies is that it felt so shiny. It didn't really feel like Star Wars because the original trilogy had this grit and grime to it that I'm not expecting. Like, of course, that's all taking place like in the aftermath of all, the rebellion and all that. But it was so different. It did not feel like Star Wars. So then, when you have Rogue One and then the sequel trilogies, it did feel like Star Wars to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And same with Mandalorian, same with this show. Like it immediately I'm like, okay, I buy it. So you got me on the original premise. And I will say one thing that immediately came out from the opening scene of episode 1. And Kaylin said it as well. She was like, "This fight scenes are really good."
Mm-hmm.
Like right off the bat, I was like, "Yep, you're right. This is a really stepped up Star Wars fight scene."
Yeah.
And like you had mentioned before, I think in one of our in the previous Week in Geek or something like that, when we talked about the lightsaber being a last resort, like very much like held off on that, and it was, it's hard when you're watching that and just watching Carrie-Anne Moss do the. With kind of a very stone face, almost like, wow, it's hard not to be thinking about the Matrix.
Yes.
When she's doing
I was ready for her to go into crane kick mode at one point. It's like,
that would have been awesome.
That would have been
gosh,
great.
I would have lost my crap at that moment.
That would have been great.
But yeah, I kind of bought into it right away. How'd you feel? What was your initial impression? Like, let's just talk about that opening before the first credits or the first, like, the title sequence. Like, what was your impression from that? Because I really feel like that's the time when you either this became kind of polarizing right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you feel in just that beginning to titles?
Okay, so not getting into the initial fight.
No, the initial fight is like you get the little intro, and then you kind of have that fight, and then the title comes up after.
I liked it. I mean, I think you've got to distinguish the movies from the shows, right? And I think having the title crawl as something that the movies do, Rogue One, I don't remember if it did. I don't think it did. So maybe they're just keeping that just for the classics or for what they consider to be like, like the big pay-per-views, like with with wrestling. Got to bring it all back to wrestling, baby.
Yep.
If you will, even if you won't. But no, I like the start of it. We can get into this more later, but I'm wondering if there's more to the Carrie Ann Moss character. Maybe there's not. Maybe this was plain and simple. Her character is what it is, and there's nothing more to it.
Yeah.
Spoilers. There was something
Carrie
about
Moss drew the Drew Barrymore card.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
from Scream. Oof.
There's something about that initial conversation that happens between her and May, that just seems strange to me. Like almost like it was not rehearsed, but it was just like Indara does not seem surprised by what she's saying. Like it's some sort of like back and forth, call and effect. I don't remember what it's called, but when you have a callback, when someone says something, like at church, if someone says something and the congregation says something back, you know what I mean?
Yes. Or almost like if you're like in if you have like the sign, like not
right.
signs, but like code words, like you have to, you say a certain thing, they have to repeat the exact right words back to you, otherwise it don't work.
So right away my radar is up because I'm like, well, that's kind of strange. But then I agree, the fight scene was phenomenal. Thought it was just a great showcase of what we talked about a couple episodes ago with them showing the Jedi as just being very so astute, where they're more about defense and avoiding conflict and only really leveraging it. Like she only ignites the lightsaber when she absolutely has to. You know what I mean? It's not the first move she makes, it's the last move she makes. The thing that I found interesting, and I noticed this not only on this episode, and I'll jump ahead just really briefly to the show, the face off between May and Sol. There's these points in the fights where they zoom in on the lightsaber and May looking at the lightsaber. Like they did this with Indara. There's a point where Indara like either jumps
when it's still hanging on the belt.
When it's hanging on the belt, and May's like staring at it. And I'm like, why are they showing that to us?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if she's trying to fight them and defeat them without a weapon, and yet why is she focused on the lightsaber? Like, is it meant to be a trophy she's supposed to bring back? Like they haven't really expounded upon that or said anything about it. But there's commonality between the Indara fight and the Sol fight that way. There was that other master whose name I got to look up that she didn't really fight. He just more kind of willingly, did himself in. But
yeah, I can't remember his name either. It didn't start with an M or something.
Master beginning with a T, Tibion or something like. I'll have to look it up. Yeah. But anyways, we're talking about episode 1. So no, I thought it was a great opener. It wasn't. I think the thing that shocked me the most is I just expected more from Carrie Ann Moss being attached to the show. You know what I mean? Like it was very strange to me that they killed her character off. However,
I'm thinking there's got to be flashbacks somewhere. Like they've got to.
Well, flashbacks, or is there something more afoot going on? You know what I mean? Like there's something going on with this event that happened in May and Osha's past with these Jedi, right? Yeah. Where May's going on this revenge tour. But is it leading to a place where someone we think is dead isn't really dead, but is really orchestrating all of this? You know what I mean? Because Jedi have an ability to fake death. They have an ability to heal themselves, as we've seen. So I don't know. It's kind of like this is definitely built as a mystery, and you don't quite know exactly. Like you're getting little. The curtain's getting pulled back little by little to kind of see more and more and get more information. And so I was pleasantly surprised by the beginning. I enjoyed it.
And when I referenced like the fact that fans kind of going for their pitchforks and torches, one of the articles that I read was kind of pointing out like how the difference between the critic response and the fan response. So I guess at one point on Rotten Tomatoes, you had a 93% fresh critics score, 39% for Rotten score for the audience.
Jeez,
so
that's crazy.
A big difference.
Yeah.
I don't want to try and, well, actually I do. I think a lot of that just comes down to the fact that there is a subsection of Star Wars fans that are just never going to be happy with anything. No, and they kind of live to troll this stuff.
Yep.
And they take glee in it. Now, is it the best mystery ever? No. I mean, but then again, I don't feel really qualified to to speak on that. Like, I am not an avid mystery watcher. You know, the mysteries that I have read, honestly, are Sherlock Holmes and the Longmire series. That's really it. I've not read a ton of mysteries. It's just not kind of my genre. Sci-fi, yes. Weird ass books, yes. Mystery,
Yeah.
I guess if I stumble across it, maybe. I think it's pretty interesting. The thing I thought was a little cheesy is, oh my gosh, the twins alive. However, I mean, when you get down to it, with a lot of mysteries, there is sometimes these moments where you just have to look over the fact, well, isn't that convenient? Yeah, it's fracking convenient, because otherwise this stuff wouldn't get solved within the 300-page novel, the 8-episode miniseries, the 2-hour movie, whatever. Like, yes, it's fracking convenient. Of course it is, because this is fiction. It's not real life. Like, snap out of it, chucklehead. You know, so like, you can't judge it that way.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, there's some things that look a little convenient, or oh my gosh, I've seen that before. Yeah, you've seen it before. Like, duh. However, I do think it's been kind of interesting in the way it's building the characters. And ultimately, that is what makes stories work best, is when you have characters that you're interested in or you connect with, or you're like, I don't understand this person. I want to learn more about them. And, you know, Indara, yeah, even though, you know, she gets jobbed out before the opening credits, I mean, I'm guessing there's some significance there.
Yeah.
You know, Saul to me is a very kind of interesting character. Like, starts getting into this idea of like, maybe the idea of like Jedis not having attachments. You know, it didn't start with Anakin, you know, and maybe this is kind of one of the faults of the Jedi. Yeah, all of that is interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this could go, and now it could crater like Kenobi. Who knows?
Yeah.
Actually, that ought to be a great way to describe any future Star Wars project. Are we going to soar like Skywalker, or are we going to crater like Kenobi?
Come on. No, Kenobi wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad, but it wasn't good. It really wasn't. It was fair to middling, really. I mean, it was a good yarn. I'm never going to go back and rewatch it.
I might.
You know, I'll go back and rewatch Book of Boba Fett before I'll watch Kenobi again.
Interesting. Interesting.
But I do. I kind of like the way they're pulling it back little by little. I like the idea that, like, it's, you know, it kind of goes back to the movie Red, where you have this group of people that are all of a sudden being killed, and you got to figure out why they're being killed and all those things. And yeah, it'll be a fun ride. Now, at the end of it, maybe we'll go, that was obvious or lame or whatever. But until then, I can't say that I'm truly disappointed in this after 2 episodes. Like, it's weird.
Yeah.
But then again, I mean, I've been waiting for different Star Wars stuff for how many years?
Yeah.
And now, what am I going to do? Sit here and piss and moan about it now that it's here? No. Just glad to have more Star Wars. Anyways, that's my little mini rant. Such as it is.
So as we get further into episode 1, though, I think, and you don't have this frame of reference, but I think what I enjoyed about it was kind of seeing come to life a little bit what I have seen in the Star Wars Old Republic video game. Like, that there, you know, even though, you know, that game is, of course, during a period of war between the Republic and the Empire, that there is, you know, all of these various settings and the architecture, and, you know, kind of like you were saying, it's not grimy because it's during this time of peace and prosperity. And it's kind of interesting to just see the galaxy in kind of a different way than what we're used to seeing it. You know, now it doesn't seem totally different to me. Like, some of the settings, like in episode 2, when they're on, I forget what planet that is, Olega, you know, the town they're in doesn't feel that much different than the town we saw in Andor. You know what I mean?
Well, so can I just have 1 second to clarify that?
Yeah.
When I said shiny, I just meant that it's that kind of shiny that is almost antiseptic in a way that, if you want to point out one of the failings of like Star Trek The Next Generation, it was because the ship just looked like if you were walking down the hallways, all you would smell is like new car smell and new carpet. Like
Right.
it didn't look like people actually lived there. There was no wear and tear. It doesn't have to be grimy and dirty and all that, but it should at least look like people live there and it's not just like a pristine movie set. Because you've already established like this is a universe in which people live and work and sweat and all that. There was none of that. It just looked like it was almost like theme park pristine in a way. So that's kind of what I meant when I'm talking about too shiny.
Well, but I mean, Lucas has said like there was a purpose to how like the Rebel ships looked and the original movies and having them look a little more worn and beaten and that sort of thing. Like there was
totally. But even like
behind that,
even like the Death Star and stuff like that, like it and again, this is also because the quality of the sets and all that, like it wasn't picture perfect, but it at least looked like it was feasible that people kind of lived there. Whereas because there was so much CGI involved in the prequel trilogies, it really felt like the wrapper just came off of this ship.
Yeah.
Like nobody has ever walked down this hall before. Anyways, that's it. Didn't match up in any meaningful way.
Yeah,
I guess what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Anyways, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all right. It's all right. But nonetheless, so like we get a view of the Jedi Temple of Coruscant. I don't know how you feel, but I am so waiting for Yord Fandar, the Jedi Knight who has the yellow lightsaber, to just get the holy hell beaten out of him, because man alive is he annoying. Oh my God. Yeah. If there was ever a Jedi who I was rooting against, Yord is at the top of my list.
He even has a name where you're like, I can't wait for Orr to get his ass beat.
You know what I don't like? People named Yord.
You know what really grinds my gears? Jedis named Yord.
Whose are you, Yord or mine? Actually, that's more of a Waldorf and whatever the other guy's name is.
Statler and Waldorf.
Statler and Waldorf. There we go. But so one question I have for you is in one, we get Osha is on this, she ends up getting captured. She's on a prison ship. She ends up in one of the more interesting sort of scenarios, basically goes down with the ship in spectacular fashion. And then she has this vision where because we're trying to figure out, like, it's pretty noticeable in the beginning of the episode that May, who we come to find out is May, has some sort of white tattoo sort of thing going on in the upper left of her temple or forehead. And we don't see that with Osha. And so it's like, well, what the heck is going on? Like,
and May's hair is longer, I believe.
May's hair. Yeah, that's true. And so,
but both details that you could easily miss. Cause honestly, until you mentioned that the white tattoo or whatever thing, I kind of blanked on that. So no.
So she has this vision or this, I don't know what to call it, dream or vision, where she sees her younger sister and she kind of follows her and stuff. And we're not quite sure what that is, but did you at all, like, now that you know that they're basically twins and they both seem to have a force sensitivity, are you thinking they're going to this like force dyad place again, like they did in like, Rise of Skywalker or something goofy like that? I mean, I know it was like Rey and Kylo and they kind of shared this bond, but now that you have twins that are Jedi, essentially, or not Jedi, sorry, are essentially force sensitive, are we going to get some more of that sort of chicanery thrown into the mix here?
Well, so the force dyad thing, I don't think got really weird until you got to like in The Last Jedi. That was when it kind of first started.
Yeah. They got weird in Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, totally. But everything got fracking weird in Rise of Skywalker. Yeah. I think they are heading that direction, but I think they're heading that direction in order to kind of course correct and almost say like, this is what that's really supposed to be like. And using it as a way of as the fact that they're twins as a way to go, well, it's extra weird and we can maybe massage this to be cooler because, oh, well, they're twins. So they already have like that twin connection of like, oh, well, if one twin breaks his arm, the other one feels it, sort of thing. But I think I feel like that is sort of the thing. I mean, they're not force sensitive. They're both force users, or one is force user. I mean, well, obviously they both are, because Osha trained as a Jedi, so I mean, she has to be using the force. Although it doesn't seem to like she's kind of like, the gift has left her, almost like she's not worthy, so she can't lift Mjolnir, or Mew Mew. So heading way off the track here. But I do kind of feel like they're heading that direction, because that was way too vivid of a dream / vision, and went through several stages.
Yeah.
That I really feel like, that's kind of where they're heading. And it's given right away in the logo of the show. I mean, Acolyte, they have the O that's overlaid, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious they're heading that direction. Although it seems like they're kind of playing around with it in a way where I feel like there might be a little bit of a rope-a-dope here. Like they might be trying to play it real obvious to then go, and here's a swerve. That's what I'm hoping for. Because if this play just plays out as obvious as I think it is, it'll be a little disappointing, quite honestly.
Yeah. What else? So we're introduced to Master Soul in the first episode. He goes and basically seeks out Osha. Sorry?
Who's the green lady? Why do I feel like I know that?
Jedi Master Vernestra Roa.
Yeah. Whew. There's a name.
Although I have suspicions about her after episode 2.
Okay. And those are?
Which we'll get into in a moment. Let's wrap up one first. So Master Soul goes and chases down Osha, which I find kind of funny, because on the way there, he's telling the story about how he saved her. And I thought one of the Padawan that's with them is suggesting, or I think someone says something. Oh no, he tells him that she had a twin sister, and that the twin sister was dead. And I think the Padawan says, well, do you think maybe she, and he's like, no, that is not, and then when he finds Osha and she's like, May's alive, I believe you. It was like the fastest turnaround in someone's conviction that I've ever seen in a 45-minute episode.
Well, in a way it makes sense. And also
I know it does. I know.
So the weird thing, the reason my eyes just went wide. So Master Vernestra, Rebecca Henderson, was in Westworld.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can we get an my on that?
Hang on, I got to move screen.
Oh my!
It's a little too sexy, Sulu.
I was going to say that maybe that wasn't the appropriate.
I know.
That
have to go with a little.
There we go. That's more appropriate.
Balance that out.
We got to get a Ron Simmons dam on here at some point. You know,
we had that for a long time.
Oh, did we? Oh, that's right. You the dam. All right. Nonetheless,
where were we?
we were talking about Jedi Master Vernestra Roa.
Yes. So I think it's interesting how, with her introduction, it's immediately setting up the fact that somebody could turn on Saul real quick.
Mm-hmm.
There is something not quite.
Someone's putting him through the barbershop window. Did you see that gorilla? He threw himself through the window.
Oh, the brain.
Will you stop?
Oh, we miss him so much.
Oh, my God. Him and Monsoon, man. Never again will we ever experience a pairing like that. Oh, my God.
No. JR and Lawler was a pale imitation of that. I think JR did a fair job of working up to Gorilla Monsoon. Lawler could never hope to be as charming and as subtle in some of his humor as Heenan was.
Of all the many lines that Heenan had, I can honestly say that one during the barbershop aftermath.
Oh no, that was a classic.
Was and I say this in retrospect. It wasn't like it hit me in the moment when it happened, because of course I was kind of a kid / preteen at that point. But looking back, and I've watched it a few times, I've watched it many times since then. And just the aftermath, just Janetti hanging there And Heenan's like, I told you they were going to split. Like just a second ago, he was like, oh, they made up. And he's like, I told you they were going to split.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's like, look, Janetti, he threw himself through the window. And Monsoon's reaction is just so perfect. It's just like, are you watching the same thing as me?
Those two are great together. So great.
But bringing it back to Acolyte.
Please. Yeah, please.
Vanestra being the Shawn Michaels to Soul's Marty Jannetty, I think is what you were saying.
I think there's a good possibility. Like he's being set up to fail, and like I do love the idea of this investigation because because Saul was one of the Jedi, so he's not only is he there, like this could be Vanestra setting him up to like put him in place, like hey, get all of them, and then we can wipe this off the books, sort of thing. Like there's a lot of interesting possibilities. I feel.
Yeah. So we get into episode 2, where May again tries to kill a Jedi Master. This one's interesting because we have a Jedi Master who's basically taking a nap in some sort of protective shield
for like 10 years.
For 10 years, we have the Rip Van Winkle of Jedi, and he's got a shield up just in case.
Well, because you don't want some coming along and
oh my gosh,
poking at him.
Yes. But this was an interesting episode. We get introduced to I don't know if I'm saying the name right, but Kamir, who is basically the individual who kind of makes up the poison for May to go back and poison the. Well, actually, before I get to episode 2, what did you think of the ending of 1, where she's walking toward this character who's kind of reciting this mantra about the Jedi believe in a dream and we need to kill the dream. And the thing I didn't pick up that I'm kind of seeing here in the Wikipedia is where May is basically challenged to kill a Jedi without a weapon. I didn't realize that challenge was being laid down. I was kind of more just taking it in and thinking it was just kind of a mantra that he was kind of reciting to her. But yeah, he lays a challenge out: kill a Jedi without a weapon. And that leads us into 2. So, but what do you think about that ending? Did you like it? Was it like ooh?
Well, it's all good. It was cool, but at the same time, it's really going to work. It's really going to show in how it plays out and who that is.
Yeah.
If that is Palpatine, I swear to you,
it's not Palpatine.
Well, stranger crap has happened, hasn't it, sir? The Rise of Skywalker exhibits A through Triple Z.
Some thoughts are this
Darth
could be
Plagueis.
The introduction of Darth Plagueis.
Which, please, dear God, let it be, rather than like, it's Palpatine.
He is the Alpha and Omega of Star Wars, the beginning and the end.
Shut up, Wesley.
Yeah, I'll take that. No doubt. No, I thought it was a great ending too. I thought it was very cool to kind of see that there's kind of a puppet master to this. It kind of brings us
dude in a mask, which is one of those deals where it's like, can't we shake this? I mean, it's cool, I get it, but
can't we have a Sith that doesn't wear a mask initially? Like it's like we always have to have them hidden until we reveal them, and then it's always like, but
well, I kind of get that now because like, well, yeah, who wants to know? Like, oh, hey, that's Terry.
Yeah. Hey, that's my garbage man. What's going on over there? He's a Sith. Who would have thunk it?
That guy cuts my hair.
Oh my God. Well, anyways,
he's very reasonable.
Yes, he is.
He usually throws in the shave for free.
Gives me a close trim.
Yeah.
What?
Nothing.
Oh, come on. What? You find
I was going to head down dark roads.
I know, and I don't know why. Good God. Anyways, episode 2, we pick it up with May trying to kill the Rip Van Winkle. Yeah, bring your confetti. The Rip Van Winkle of the Jedi Masters, Master Torben. But interestingly enough, in the short time we see Torben, we come to understand he was also a master at this event that happened.
Yep. Well, and we kind of get the idea, like especially in the beginning of episode 1, like where's your Jedi? Meaning, this is a normal thing. Jedi are posted at these different places, and for whatever reason, the interesting thing being, like, where's your Jedi? There's one Jedi that we see on this one planet, and apparently there's 5 of them.
Yeah.
On this other planet. So what the heck was going on there? That you got 4 humanoid Jedi.
There was a covert of them. There was a covert of them.
Plus a Wookiee Jedi, which has got to count for like 2 normal Jedi.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think that's how the math works.
I think so. He has a 33 and a third chance of winning. So,
Well, which when you add in the 75% chance the other person.
Steiner math.
Where's that? The more you know. Do, 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 do. Except in that one, the star be like, and run into something.
Yeah, basically. Or, holla if you hear me.
How did he not mess up that? Big Papa Pump as your hookup.
I know. It felt like it was just doomed.
And his theme song was basically just like a siren.
Yeah.
There's no music.
And the people would go nuts whenever he would come in. As soon as that siren hits, it's
man.
like,
Steroids.
Although I still think that exchange between him and Bubba Ray and TNA Impact was one of the best ever, where they were. I'll have to send you the link to it, but they're having some like conversation about, I don't know, some ladies or something like that, and then what the heck, I don't know. He and Bubba Ray start arguing about something, and like Steiner just is like, he just starts like rambling. He's like, "I'm Big Papa Pump," and like finally Bubba Ray's like, "English." I mean, it was phenomenal. It was just phenomenal.
I can't remember the actor's name in. But he does the Chaos commercials for the insurance. Was it Allstate or?
Oh yeah. He was in
John Wick, the first John Wick movie, and
30 Rock. He was in 30 Rock. He played what's her name's ex-boyfriend or something.
But in the first John Wick movie, like he is the right hand man to Vigo, the Russian mob boss, and Vigo every so often starts talking in Russian, and he's just like, "English, please." Just like this exasperated look, like, I don't speak Russian. I've worked for you for a long time. You know I don't speak Russian. Anyways,
that is funny. So man, this is now the second time we've worked a wrestling reference into the Acolyte.
I mean, well, I'm surprised we haven't worked a Ron Simmons, Bradshaw joke in here. Where's the protection agency? Couldn't they help the Jedi here?
That's what we need, is when the Acolyte, title card comes up, we got to hear that theme song. We got to get that going.
That's all we need, is like in the background of one of these cantina scenes when there's everything happening. Just see Simmons and Layfield in the background playing cards. Smoking a cigar.
Okay, so there's that, but every time a Jedi gets offed, you got to have this hooded figure come in, take the hood off. It's Ron Simmons, just looks around with this perplexed look on his face. Bam! And then walks off. Everyone's like, what the hell was that?
You hear that? You hear that, Kathy Kennedy? Release the Ron Simmons cut. That's what we need.
Oh my God, I almost lost it. Oh, the Ron Simmons cut. I love it.
That's what we need.
That is what we need. Make it happen. All right. So
where were we with this?
So we're talking about Jedi Master Torben, the Rip Van Winkle.
Oh, yes.
So Saul and his crew head over to this planet as there is it's basically understood that Osha is not to be suspected because of the fact that now this other Jedi Master has been attacked. She is with Soul, so clearly she can't be in two places at once, right?
Convenient, but at the same time, like, you kind of need to get that out of the way.
So Master Venestra gives Soul the go-ahead to head over to Olega and check that business out, and so they do. We find May has a supplier named Kamir, who now seems like they're both working for this mysterious person. Because they seem to be aware of them and what their orders are and so forth. I have read some articles that have speculated is Kamir basically the one who's in the helmet, because he seems to play that role of kind of the clumsy clumsy shop guy. But then,
so are we heading towards like a usual suspect sort of thing here?
Maybe
he's a verbal Kint.
Maybe,
which is funny because I I've really found, like, as we're going through this, like,
Yeah.
I'm drawing on my experience with other movies and other shows to really inform, like, how I feel. So, like, the whole Master Torben thing reminded me so much in Kill Bill of Michael Madsen's scene when he's talking with Bill.
Yeah.
And he's talking about, that woman deserves her revenge.
Yeah.
And we deserve to die.
Yeah.
And then if you just left it there, like, that's Master Torben right there. But then, of course, in Kill Bill, like, then Michael Madsen is like, but then again, so does she.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll just see, it's like,
yeah.
And in a way, I was kind of hoping for something like that with Torben, but I also understand the direction they went. Like, this is a dude who literally, it feels like attack of the conscience, and has just been waiting, been just waiting for this to resolve itself. And now, like, okay, I'm ready.
Well, and it opens up, if we weren't already asking the question,
which means this has got to be really bad.
Well, that's where I'm going, is that now it really opens the door for the question of what exactly happened, right? Like, we just thought this was just some sort of accident or attack that these Jedi, like, try to help these people out with and whatnot. Now we're finding out, like, this guy's carrying some, Torben at least is carrying some weight about this.
Yeah.
To the point where he's okay with just taking the poison and being done with it. So something has happened. And that's what I find interesting about this is, like, if this is really kind of the start of the return or because the whole premise at the start of episode 1 with that title card was we're in the midst of the 1,000 years of peace. Like this is the time that Kenobi talked about, where the Republic was a peaceful and place, and there wasn't Sith, and there wasn't dark side implications going on. It was all very just kind of things just ran, and everyone was in a good place. Exactly. And so are we going to find out that this event that happened on Osha and May's planet when they were kids, that led to them thinking May's dead, and Osha gets brought in with the Jedi, is that really going to be the genesis of the Sith somehow? Is that like that's what I'm kind of curious about, is that are we seeing, is the show going to give us kind of that nexus point of, here's how the dark side and the Sith start to take off now? Like something happens where
and
evil...
Isn't there a thing? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say where evil is born, basically. Like somehow they existed for so long without this being an issue, and now evil is somehow born.
Okay. The funny thing is, like, I caught a YouTube short. Maybe I'll try and find it and add it to the all right, see you later. It was nice for you to show up for the show.
Hey. Just grabbing another bottle, my friend.
Okay, I didn't know where you were going.
I'm going to knock out 2 bottles in one night. Look at that.
I thought you were just left, pissing off and being like, no, I'm going to go get a snack.
Screw you guys. I'm going home.
No, if you're going to do that, you have to do the screw you guys, I'm going home.
That's right. Thank you for correcting me on the Cartmanisms.
I saw this short where it started, which is terribly annoying. It was like the top 5 most powerful Jedis, and it only got through like 5 and 4. Stupid. But the 5th one was like Numi something or rather, and it went back to like during the Sith War. And it was like 1,000 years prior to the Skywalker saga and something like that. So obviously, basically at the beginning of the High Republic era.
Okay.
And so obviously the Sith have always been a thing, but then of course, obviously we're taken down, and now we're kind of seeing that rise of the Sith here. Yeah, it's interesting how this could then begin to set the dominoes in motion. Like, you're not going to see an immediate hit on this, but yeah, this is where it kind of starts. That would be really interesting. That would be really informative in terms of going forward. It might also be really informative that perhaps is May a clone.
Mea culpa.
And do we get Jorus in this, whatever.
Oh, Master Sabath.
Or, something tying in with that. I don't know. Oh, God, don't remind me of that. Anyways, just a thought.
An intriguing thought at that. So yeah, we get introduced to Quimir, and then we find out So the planet where this event happens with May and Osha back, in the past, is on Brendok. And we end up finding out that Indara, Torben, Sol, and the Wookiee Kelnaka, so 4 Jedi, the final 4, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Ooh, the 4 horsemen.
Was it more than? Was it?
It was just
only
the 4. The 4.
Oh, okay.
Were basically part of whatever happened there in the rescue and all that, and so that is who May is targeting. And so the Jedi, so Sol, the Padawan, our good friend Yord Fandar, Yord,
shirtless Yord.
Stay at the watch, Yord. Check it out. Don't move.
It would be great if Yord had like a really like thick Minnesotan accent.
Put your shirt on, Yord.
Oh yeah, I gotta go get my lightsaber,
eh?
Or no, actually that's more Canadian. I can't do a Minnesota. I know a couple people can do a really good Minnesotan accent. It's a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
I always slip into Canadian.
But basically, they hatch a plan to, basically get Khmer to admit to what his part in this is and arrest him, as well as May. And so we have Osha, who ends up, which I find hysterical. She goes to a market and buys a purple wrap or something and throws it around herself. And right away, it's like, and I get what they're doing because she's probably not used to doing this, but she's just so like not acting like her sister. You know what I mean? It's just like, he's like, hi, and she's like
so trying to play it bland.
Hi, hello. Like he's not gonna like figure out like something's on the up and up here,
Although the funny thing is, I saw this the other day and it did crack me up. Someone says they had 2 pictures and they're like, after seeing Zoe Deschanel with glasses and bangs, and then seeing her without, I can totally now understand how people never caught on to the fact that Clark Kent was Superman. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, my God, they're right. That is the same person, and yet it's not the same person. So when stuff like this happens, it always sets off that alarm, like, oh, how can you not know? And then I'm like, well, I don't know.
That's funny.
We give ourselves way more credit for intelligence than we really ought to.
Yeah.
It's just my thought.
So they end up getting the information from Khmer. He reveals the existence of May's master and kind of her overall plan, and then Sol kind of hatches a plan to try to capture her, and wants to reason with her. And so we get that really. I thought it was a great exchange between her and Sol. Like I wouldn't call it a fight. He's more like just avoiding her, more than anything else.
Pickpocketing all of her knives as she's staring at his lightsaber again.
Yes.
But then he's totally picked her pockets.
Yep.
Although the final move of just dumping the knives on the ground, I'm like, dude, she's a Force user. How come she doesn't go, thanks?
Yeah. Bam. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Just saying, of all the holes in logic, that was the one that bothered me the most. I'm like, how come she doesn't do a little thing? And there they are.
And to credit, with a credit to the episode's title, Revenge and Justice, this was the struggle Osha's having, and Sol is trying to impart some wisdom on her because she's got anger toward her sister. Understandably so. I mean, her sister's basically gotten her into this mess without really her having done anything, but she ends up, so May gets out of the fight using, tomfoolery, and
a dust cloud, if you will,
a dust cloud. And May's got
would that qualify as a dusty finish?
Oh, if you will. There it is.
Oh God, that is so cheesy.
Yeah.
But you got to have it.
Oh my.
Sulu, take it easy. Good Lord.
Is it getting hot in here? Is it just me?
Oh my gosh.
It feels a little moist in here.
This is a premature adjudication, so
you're welcome.
Thank you. All right. But
sure.
But we seen, felt, smelt, and dealt. All right. But I think what was interesting in the episode with Osha was just how it reveals the struggle she's having, in terms of wanting to exact some vengeance on her sister for what she's done, and so I thought that was an interesting, role to play, where she's not just playing, kind of the vanilla baby face here. Like there's a struggle there, that's going on, and Soul is trying to guide her, and I thought that exchange was really telling when he's trying to impart that wisdom in her, and she's really just like, you know what, I'm not your Padawan anymore, like sort of thing. Like that was pretty. That was like a GG, little smack back.
Real dad.
That's right. So where was I going with all this? So
I don't know.
Let's see. So she gets away. So she and Kamir get away, because they know their cover is blown. But now they're going to go travel to, I guess it's called Kofar, which is where Kelnaka is. And I find it interesting that she's in pursuit of Kelnaka, even though she knows Soul is following her. You know what I mean? Like, you think if she's going to kill all of them, she would try to deal with the one that's investigating her and then move on to the Wookiee.
Or go for one that's a little easier to kill than a Wookiee.
Well, yeah, basically.
Just saying.
But here's the thing. Here's where my spidey senses tingled a little bit during this episode, and it goes back to what we were talking about with Jedi Master Venestra Roa, the one who is
tingle.
Tingle. Yes, I did.
Oh my!
Sulu, whoop 4.5, engage.
Sulu, where are your pants?
Damn it, we told you to keep that in your quarters.
Anyways, this episode's going downhill so quickly.
Not really.
Oh yeah, no.
But
started tunneling.
But what I find interesting is what the way Venestra commands him to come back to Coruscant. Like, he basically lays out and says, "This is what she's doing." Like, we actually understand the motive now. We understand what's going on. We know who it is. We know what she's going after. We need to go to Kelnaka. And what is she saying? We're not going to make any choices until we have a well thought out discussion.
Yeah. In the meantime, she sent him off to this other place with somebody that they originally were like, "Hey, you got to go arrest him." And
right.
Instead, they're like, "Hey, take her along. She'll be useful."
So,
but now we got to talk about this.
Something about the exchange was a little odd to me because, like, rather than taking the information he's provided and kind of making a call and saying, "Okay, yeah, I see where you're going with this. Like, we need to make sure Kelnaka is safe," she's doing something else. So that's why my spidey sense is up a little bit with her, because I think, maybe she's involved somehow. Thank you. But if there's something to this idea that I mentioned, kind of earlier about, maybe Indara isn't really dead. Like, maybe there is something going on here. And I'm wondering if there is a collective of, maybe Jedi Masters who have, kind of been seduced. Like, if this Brendock event,
seduced?
Well, oh my!
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Sulu. If this Brendock event is really kind of the point where corruption starts, right? I'm wondering if we're going to find out that it's not really just one person driving this, but are there multiple people now? Maybe it's Venestra, maybe it's Indara, maybe it's others who are kind of part of this idea of starting something, from a dark side perspective. I'm wild speculation. I'm probably way off the mark because there's the rule of two with the Sith and all that sort of thing. But
hey, it's premature adjudication.
It would be interesting.
Here.
It would be interesting in my mind. Premature speculation now is what we're talking about here.
You feel free to prematurely adjudicate all
speculate,
over the place.
Adjudicate, debate,
you just
regulate,
adjudicate that. Left,
just
right,
don't
and center.
constipate.
Oh. Get that cicada up there. It'll take care of that. That face is terrifying.
Oh my.
Anyways, all right. So what happened here? So I feel like we're ready to answer some questions here. Is it compelling or as Paul Heyman would say?
He said For me, I think it's compelling. Like
Hmm.
but unfortunately, I'm the eternal optimist between the two of us. I'm also the Star Wars fanboy who is open to anything new and different. And
Mm.
like I said, I like, and some of this may be colored by the fact that I've been playing, the Old Republic game a bit, and like some of the themes and some of the texture that game brings to the Star Wars lore and history. I like this as giving us a different view. I like it hasn't jumped into the, hasn't jumped into the Yoda well yet. I mean, that was, a question I had in my mind was, are we going to see Yoda right away? Because Yoda's the only character that would exist at this point. He was 900 years old with
Very true.
Luke.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad they're staying away from it. They're just establishing new characters. They're running with this mystery. They're I don't feel like they're being overly expository with the story. Like I don't feel characters are giving soliloquies and speeches to try to like color context and stuff like that. I feel like everything feels very organic and natural the way it's playing out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm bullish on this. I think it is going to develop. I'm fine if all we got of Carrie Ann Moss was just those first 5 to 7 minutes in episode 1, and there's not this twist that I'm talking about. But I do think there's going to be a twist coming along the way. I think they're going to do something interesting with this to kind of show that at the end of the day, the High Republic and the Republic itself starts to fall, not because of some mysterious external force, but because of corruption from within. And I think that's a story that is worth telling, and I think would be very interesting in the context of Star Wars, and fit in with the lore moving forward into what we know is our, kind of, context with the original trilogy.
I'm going to agree with you. You like to hold yourself up as the only optimist. I like to think I'm optimistic.
I'm overly optimistic. You have a more grounded and
well
level-headed way of looking at stuff. Like, I love the Matrix and the trilogy, and you're like, well, yeah, and you're probably right in some ways. But
some people would just say that's me being a douchebag, which I'm, fair enough.
Oh my!
I'll let you do that one. I'm not going to bring out Sulu again.
Thank you. Sulu needs to cool off for a minute.
He needs to go get hosed down. But no, I find it compelling.
Yeah,
and maybe that's just because I've read enough. Again, I've been reading through the Longmire books by Craig Johnson, and it's kind of made me realize, like, okay, yeah, there's formulas and there's stuff, and sometimes it's just you just have to shut your brain off in a way and enjoy the yarn.
Yeah,
and enjoy the journey. And that's just kind of what I'm doing with this, and I'm enjoying it. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's as bad as some of the comments I've read, and I think in some ways people are just have these high expectations of, like,
yes,
every single thing that has Star Wars attached to it is going to change the world. Well,
it
ain't going to do that. Like, no. Yeah, Star Wars A New Hope, Episode 4, OG, first Star Wars movie, changed the world. Not everything is going to do that, right. It's okay. Sometimes it's okay just to like a show and enjoy the story. Sort of like Book of Boba Fett. Greatest Star Wars thing ever? Hell no.
No.
Was it entertaining? Yeah, it had some pretty damn good moments.
I will throw in there, it had the worst chase scene in history, though.
Yeah, like essentially a moped chase scene. Yeah, no, totally.
I'm gonna get him. You're moving 5 miles an hour, but I'm gonna get him.
Yeah, like the hoverboard chase in Back to the Future 2 was more exciting.
But to your point, like one thing I would say is I feel like with the fan reaction and stuff, that 100% agree. Like it can't be a home run every time. But I think what the measure needs to be is, kind of the, camping or Boy Scout kind of, perspective of leave it better than the way you found it. You know what I mean? Like, as long as the series is building the lore, and as long as it's doing justice to the franchise, it isn't going to be a Mando Grogu sort of thing every single time. Like, that's what I think people don't understand is, like, what happened with Mandalorian, especially in that first season. Favreau had the vision of this particular thing will resonate with people. Oops, look at that. Thumb goes up. This particular thing will resonate with people. It's not going to happen every time. You know what I mean? It's not, you're not going to make that particular connection every single time. So you've got to have, some realism or some realistic expectations around what these things are meant to be. And I feel like this story is meant to kind of, if I'm right, is going to go in a direction of really kind of telling us the origin of how evil and how the Sith started to permeate into the galaxy. And one thing I'll say, and I want to give credit to the scruffies on this one, scruffy looking podcasters, when they were doing their true and false episode, they mentioned the fact that, for this to hold true with the canon that we know, if they end up finding out about a Sith or a dark side user, those characters are probably going to be dead, because no one like I think there's a character, I think it's Kill Al-Mundi in episode 1 is what they were referencing. In episode 1 talks about how they haven't heard of the Sith in a millennia or something like that. So if they do find something, whoever finds it is going to have to die, and it's going to have to get lost. You know what I mean? To the general public, to the general Jedi public, that this is even a thing. Like, I think that may be the ending, is that there's going to be this nefarious thing that's still, permeating, but the Jedi have no clue, because anyone who was aware of it could not warn them about it because they were eliminated, and I think that to me, it kind of goes back to that Usual Suspect thing. Like, everyone involved ends up getting offed in the end. And it's, the greatest trick the devil played was, hiding in plain sight.
Yeah. Or making people believe they didn't exist.
Or didn't exist. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think it's interesting, the way that you describe that, like everything can't be a home run, because I feel like that is a very, it's a sizable portion of Star Wars fandom that feels like is expecting that home run every time. I feel like there is a very vocal portion of Star Wars fandom that not only feels like it ought to be a home run every time, they're expecting a grand slam to win like Game 7 of the World Series.
Yeah.
And they're constantly disappointed because nothing will ever, because they were however many years old when the original Star Wars rolled out in theaters, and their daddy took them to it, or their mom took them to it, or their sister or brother or whoever took them to it, or they discovered Star Wars like me, like when I was 8 or whatever, and watched it on HBO all summer and didn't even see the sunlight because that's just what I did, or whatever their entryway was into Star Wars. Nothing is ever going to equal that, but yet they're expecting it and they're measuring it against that.
Yep.
And it's just not going to work that way. Now, as far as your premise, as far as like, and what the Scruffies have said in terms of like those people are going to die, I don't think it's the fact that, I'm hoping actually that it doesn't go that direction of like, oh, well, this person was going to warn the Jedi and doggone it, they bit the dust before they could, and therefore no one ever knew. I kind of hope that it's a different way. I hope it goes into a point where we start to see like there is a systematic rot in the Jedi.
Almost like someone tries to warn them and they just ignore it.
Yeah, either that or they know and they're like, we cannot tell anybody about this.
Well, and Jedi Master Venestra, that character, kind of alludes to it in episode 1, because what is she arguing when she talks to Sol? What is she kind of arguing for? We have to control the optics of this.
Oh yeah.
So she's already in kind of, kind of recovery mode here, which is a problem, right? Because now it's like, okay, they're not transparent. They're not trying to be truthful. They're trying to control the narrative. They're trying to do the things we see going on in our world today that are causing 3/4 of the problems that are going on.
Which doesn't actually lead to solving the problem. It's just trying to, let's make sure that when somebody gets, their ass in a bind, it ain't me and my cheeks.
What you're suggesting actually is very interesting, because that plays right into what ends up leading to the downfall of the Jedi in the prequel trilogy, which is the arrogance and the stubbornness to admit that there is something nefarious going on that they can't see.
And ties into Luke's attitude in The Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I like it. I like it. Maybe the answer's somewhere in the middle. Maybe it's like,
make it so.
Good people learn things and get offed, and you have one. I mean, what's interesting is, and I forget if this is Favreau or Filoni.
Take down the darker timeline, Tim. Embrace it. Kill them all. Well, I mean, it worked in Rogue One.
No, but I forget if it was Filoni or Favreau had said it, that Lucas always wants to leave these stories on a note of hope,
which I think you can, while also like indicating like there is a rot there, like there's
right.
also hope. I think you can do that,
and that's what I kind of like about your suggestion. Is it's actually an interesting play on that, where it's like you have a character who is representing the hope, right? It's representing, hey, I know something, I'm trying to make you guys aware of it, and it's really the aloofness and the arrogance of the system that ignores it and leads to, I don't know why that thumb is going up again.
You keep on bringing your thumb up, and
I'll do this. No? Oh, there we go. How about we do this? There we go. But nonetheless, for those listening and not watching on YouTube, I'm doing the stupid Mac OS animations. But no, I think it's very interesting. Like maybe it plays into that blindness that ends up being the downfall of the Jedi, and we're seeing the beginning of it. Because and that was a vibe I got from that Venestra character right away. Like, she is like full on, like, let's just either cover this up or make sure we have a story about it. And to me, that's felt very opposite of what we had always, when you look at Obi-Wan in episode 4 and how he describes the Jedi, that feels very opposite of that description of what he describes the Jedi Knights being.
She's an administrator. She's a middle manager.
Yeah.
That's what you, and eventually that is what you're going to get when you have structures like this. Like, you got to have some people in the middle who are taking care of all this stuff, and or you think you do, and guess where the weak point winds up being? It's in Office Space, the people who you're not really sure what they do anymore.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting nonetheless.
It will.
Are you bullish or bearish, my friend? I don't think you've
bullish.
declared.
I'm excited to see how this thing goes.
All right.
We'll see. I mean,
I'm encouraged. This is
episode 8, I'm ready to kick a kitten. I don't know, but I'm bullish at the moment.
All right.
Well, sir, I think we've done a very good job of prematurely adjudicating this. So let's move on to another thing, our suggestions for our listeners and or viewers. What have you got for a suggestion this episode?
Well, in the vein of wrestling, I would highly recommend you check out, and I've talked about this before, this series overall, but there have been multiple iterations, multiple seasons of this. And we're right now in the 4th season. We had the Eddie Guerrero biography by A&E. And now what I'm recommending tonight is A&E biography, WWE Legends, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Actually, he was trained by the Sheik, I understand, when he went to Minneapolis. And
the original Sheik or Iron Sheik?
Iron Sheik. Iron Sheik. Oh. Iron Sheik was a trainer for Vern Gagne in the AWA.
You are worse than Hulk Hogan.
And that's probably what he said to Steamboat, is he was trying to, like he says, like they had a clip of Sheiky talking about how he, was really trying to test him and see how much he would take, and he passed. And he continued obviously teaching him and that sort of thing. And just a very fascinating story about what is probably, maybe next to John Cena, probably one of the greatest baby faces of professional wrestling. I mean, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, never a heel turn, always.
Was John Cena really a face? Because there was so many times that like the fans turned on him to basically force him to being the heel.
That's how he was positioned. I mean, yes, the fans booed him, but he never. Okay, but let's look at
true.
Cena,
I mean, no, he never
Cena
had a
and
heel
Roman Reigns.
turn. Yeah,
right. Roman Reigns was booed in the same way that Cena was booed when they were trying to shove him down our throats as a babyface. He turned heel. He became a very deliberate heel. Cena never moved off from hustle, loyalty, respect. That was always his deal.
We've got to come up. There's got to be a term for that, where it's like you're not a real heel, but people hate you.
But people
enough.
don't like you.
But you're essentially like you are the heel by default. You know,
Yes.
Like there's got to be, we got to come up with a term for that.
Tweener? I don't know.
No, tweener was like those anti-hero, like Austin.
Yeah, that's true.
Or when someone's like a heel, and but they're so good at being a heel, or the character kind of becomes so cool that people start cheering them.
Yeah.
And it's like you'll have to do everything possible, like aside from like they're gonna kick grandma out of a friggin' wheelchair in order to remain a heel, because like we got to have them do escalatingly worse crap because people are starting to think like they're cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways,
he tells some great stories. I was sharing with Uncle Todd in the pre-production meeting this great story. He tells about how he, as he's driving to an event with his family or with his parents, he tries to wise them up to the business and make it clear, like, this is a show, like, you're going to see me go through stuff. Just know your boy is okay. Don't act on anything. And he has a match. He wins the match, and then a wrestler comes in and attacks him as part of an angle. And the way he tells the story is he's laying on the mat, selling what's going on, and he looks over and he sees security trying to, make sure this guy doesn't get into the ring. He has a steel chair. He's like half in the ring, half out of the ring, and it's his dad. And he's like, what the heck? And so he like rolls out of the ring, goes over to security. He's like, that's my dad, just be careful with him, sort of thing. And but the way he tells the story, he's like, yeah, I'm laying there and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I hear, I'm a coming for you, boy. Which had to be the funniest freaking thing that you have to hear as you're like trying to sell this beatdown you're going through, is your father, trying to come to your rescue, which noble. I mean, good on him.
Yep.
But just absolutely hysterical story. Goes through Steamboat's history. One thing I found interesting, and I was at first I was disappointed, but then I kind of appreciated A&E for doing this, is that they didn't go and rehash things they've covered already in like the Jake the Snake biography and the Macho Man biography. So you didn't get it into, the whole thing where Jake the Snake DDT'd him on the concrete. Like that was covered in great detail in Jake's biography. And they referenced his feud with Jake. They didn't go into great detail about it. They focused a lot on the Macho Man match and how that was, and is still probably viewed as one of the greatest matches of all time. But they didn't go into the detail that they did in the Macho Man biography of how he and Savage laid that match out step for step and had him basically memorize the match going into WrestleMania 3. Which I appreciated because, like, I guess we don't need to go through that again, right? I mean, if you've watched if you're a first-time viewer, you don't have the context. But if you've seen the other biographies, it's like, yeah, I kind of appreciate not having to hear about that again,
Yeah, in a way, they might be listening to Uncle Corny because he's talked many times. Jim Cornette has mentioned like the fact that there's so much of this programming that now they're starting to repeat themselves.
Yeah,
and rehash those things. So maybe they're listening to him.
Absolutely,
in the audio, because I mean he's got the ear of the wrestling audience for sure.
Yep. But no, played up, his rise. And I was telling Uncle Todd as well during our pre-production meeting, really what I found really fascinating was how they focused in on the years of 87 to 89, 90, where, Steamboat went on this like roller coaster ride where, he had this great match with Savage, but, he was also struggling with being a family man. He was his son was being born. He asked Vince McMahon for like 2 weeks off. He won the Intercontinental title. He ended up having to drop it 10 weeks later after beating Savage to Honky Tonk Man, which led to Honky Tonk having what became one of the longest reigns until Gunther broke that, recently. But what was fascinating to me was really, seeing how someone who, played this babyface, and part of the reason he was a babyface for so long was how everyone bought into just how good of a guy he was. And he wanted to be a father. He wanted to be, a husband, but he worked in a business that required him to be on the road all the time. And so there was just this struggle that he was going through over those 2 years of, like once Vince, stripped him of the title, with the Honky Tonk match, he basically went back and said, look, forget 2 weeks. I'm taking 6 months off. And when he came back, it was just not the same. And
Mm-hmm.
then he goes to WCW. He has a great feud with Flair. He wins the World Heavyweight Championship, but loses it a month later. And then there's no return match after that. And so it's just like this ebb and flow that he goes through.
Yeah.
And then it leads into the 90s, how he continues in WCW. You know, he goes back and forth between WWE and WCW. And then it gets into how he had to retire. And it was really interesting. He fought, of all people, Steve Austin in WCW. And his career ends because he went up. He ends up beating Austin in the match. But there's a spot where he jumps up on the second turnbuckle because he was going to, you know, put Steve in a suplex, but Steve would push him off. And he ends up slipping and he lands on his butt, but in a way that damaged his back or exacerbated a problem that was already there. And so he ends up having to retire because of the damage to his back. And so it was just, overall, the biography was just really interesting. You know, again, this guy never turned heel. He was always a babyface and just well respected by so many of his, peers and folks that he would wrestle during his time. And so I would just highly recommend you check it out if you're into wrestling and you were familiar with the 80s era and Ricky Steamboat. Just a really interesting story of his life and just really well done. So do check it out. A&E biography, the Ricky Steamboat WWE Legend story.
Very nice. Very nice.
What is your end and other things?
My end and other thing has been in the hopper for about 3 or 4 episodes now. I had it in there each time, and then I end up taking it out because I think of something else that kind of fits the episode better. But I'm finally going to drop it here. Blue Angels on Amazon Prime, which is a documentary that is one of the executive producers is... crap, I can't remember his name now. He was Hangman in Top Gun Maverick. Glenn...
Oh,
yeah, him. And so it goes through basically one season with the Blue Angels, and it's one of those things where Glenn Powell. Thank you, sir. I never really thought about the Blue Angels having a season, but it really is like a sports team. Like there is a season for them. There is like a training camp, and then performances, and then at the end of that, certain pilots will rotate out of this duty because it is an assignment within as a naval aviator. And it's very interesting getting to know all that because I mean, growing up, I was always the kid who I loved airplanes, I loved fighter jets, all this stuff. I had all the books with all the statistics and all that stuff on it, and so this stuff is kind of interesting to me, but learning more about like, oh wow, so that's how that works. Like you get assigned to this, and there's a position that you fly, and you learn how to fly that position. It's very much like a sports team. Like you that is your position, and then if you're lucky, the next year you might move up to this position, and that has a whole different set of responsibilities. And it's really fascinating how their performances are gauged essentially by how tightly they fly this diamond formation. And at one point, like if they get as good as they can, they're flying within inches of each other. Like not feet, they're flying within inches of each other.
That's crazy.
And the amount of skill and trust and just like muscle memory involved in that is startling. And then you imagine the fact that I think it turns over like 30%, 33% of the team turns over every year. So you're doing this, even though these are arguably like the creme de la creme of Navy pilots. That's a lot of stuff to be doing, to figure out and to learn how to fly this way. So I thought it was riveting. I was like, this is amazing that this is actually a thing. And yeah, it's a great, kind of exploration of what it takes to do that. And then also the mind of the people who are doing that and showing you some of the routine and the way that it really is a total team effort. Like they talk about the ground crew, the support crew, and all of that, and how it is this family and this crew and this group that you have to work extraordinarily close with in order to, in order to maintain the aura of the team, in order to maintain the safety of the team, and to put on good performances. So I highly recommend it. It's a really interesting documentary. I think it would be even interesting if you're not as into aviation or any of this stuff, like just the entire idea of how this thing works translates into so many other areas. So I highly recommend Blue Angels on Amazon Prime.
Very nice. Very nice.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. We do so appreciate you hanging out with us. If you would like to become part of the Free Range Idiocy congregation, you can do that by going to freerangeidiocy.com. You can subscribe to all of our podcast episodes there, download them one by one or en masse, if you will. Those are the audio-only versions. You can also follow us there through the Podbean app. If you decide I have quite enough apps in my life, you can find us on one of the apps that you already have. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Pandora, we're on Spotify, a whole bunch of others. Search for Free Range Idiocy. You'll find us. Those are audio only. You can download those as you please and subscribe. You can also find us visually, if you will, on the YouTubes at Free Range Idiocy. You search for us there. You find all of our episodes, beginning with basically this year, all in full, bright, shining HD, which quite honestly is way more than what we need. We probably ought to down res that to something like, what is it, 420, 360? I don't know. Something like that.
280.
Back to potato phones back in the early 2000s. You can find all of those on YouTube. Be sure to follow, like, subscribe, whatever the hell you do on YouTube. I don't know. You'll ask a kid, he'll tell you. You can also find us on the social medias. We're on Facebook as well as Instagram. Both of those are at Free Range Idiocy if you'd like to get notifications and stuff as to what's happening. Also, if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, any ideas for shows, send those to Tim at freerangeidiocy.com. He will get back to you forthwith, ASAP, PDQ. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for me to hand this show over to Laserfist over there, who is going to take us home, the lesser idiot of the two idiots who run this show. Actually, no, I would actually be the lesser because I'm younger. The less idiotic. There we go. Now we're talking intelligence, and he certainly outshines me in that. But not before I ask the second most important question in all of human history. The first, of course, being what is hip. The second being, what the hell did we learn this episode?
We've learned the following, my friend.
Good. I always like learning things.
We've learned that if one is looking to find some quiet and respite in this world, go to New Hampshire. Follow
Correctamundo.
It's the place to be, and it is the right side up version of Vermont, according to me. We've also learned that ScreenRant.com is bullish on Ghost Rider making a comeback in MCU. I think Norman Reedus would be the right man to plug into that role, and there's something mildly disturbing at home. You need to change that up to a less
more disturbing the more I do it.
So something is a little less intense. Good Lord.
I feel like I need a shower now, quite honestly.
Honey, what did you record? Well, we did this show about premature this, and oh my.
Yeah.
Sulu was feeling a little randy, so what can I say? Oh, good Lord. But we have learned also that Scarlet Witch, she dead. All over.
Damn!
That's right. That's right. We've also learned that Free Range Idiocy, we are fully bullish on the Acolyte. We are impressed.
Correctamundo.
Impressed and happy and excited about where this is going, and we feel this has a lot of promise. We hope it pays off. We hope it goes in a direction that rewards us for our optimism. But if not, we will be back, don't you know it, to talk about how we were sorely disappointed if that happens.
Yeah!
We will see. We've also learned, Star Wars fans, well, I don't know if we've learned it as much as just, reconfirmed it. Expectations way, way out of whack with reality. And folks, rein it in. Enjoy it.
Shut up, Wesley.
Yeah, I would say that to them. Time and time again. With all that being said, as Uncle Todd has mentioned, we thank you for the listenership. We thank you for hearing us out, bearing with us, going on this journey with us. And as we like to close things out. Yeah, thank you, Sulu. Be safe, be healthy, be kind, be good to one another. And as we like to close things out, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. The range is closed for now. See ya!
It's like I picked the wrong week to quit drinking.
I think you've had about enough.
Well, I think you're wrong, you increasingly attractive-looking woman. You know, you're really pretty.
Oh, stop.
No, I'm serious. You could be in magazines. You could. And not just like Jugs or Creamsicle.
I beg your pardon. What did you say?
Damn!
You're such a disappointing pair. I prayed so hard for you. Get out. And don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
So say we all.
So say we all.
Oh, my.
God, can you give me a little cult of personality to cleanse the palate, please? Sweet Moses. Good God.
Oh, my.
Stop. Stop. Come on.
Oh, my.
Shut up, Wesley.
Come on.
My.
Shut up, Wesley.
Oh, my.
It's like two ends of the Star Trek spectrum. Shut up, Wesley, and oh my. Oh my God. How can you live with yourself?
I need to go boil myself.
Come on, cult of personality. Come on, please, please. Close us out on a high note.
Oh, my.
Oh, God. Why? Why? Sweet Moses. That was a journey to get here.
Look in my eyes, what do you see?
Oh,
Cult of personality.
Now get the hell out of here!